I mean, do you sort of despair at the protests on the streets and the, dare I say, naivety of them?
Yes, and the most ridiculous thing I ever heard is queers for Palestine.
Yeah,
because
chickens for KFC.
Yeah, exactly, because they kill gay people in Gaza, they throw them off the buildings, and it's this whole oppressor versus oppressed narrative, because they think that the Palestinians are oppressed, which they are, but they're oppressed by their own leaders, which is Hamas, because Hamas and the Palestinians were offered a state 4 different occasions, and they said no every single time. Yeah. And that's why they shout river to the sea, because they're the ones that are actually genocidal against Israel. They believe that Israel shouldn't exist, okay? And fundamentally, I feel like a lot of Iranians are actually pro-Israel. And you would find that surprising, because the Islamic Republic of Iran funds Hamas. Mm-hmm. However, because overwhelming majority of Iranians, they despise the Islamic Republic. And they know that they are the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, and that's why Iranians support Israel, because Israel is the front line of fighting this dangerous ideology. I understand that Israel has made a lot of mistakes, and I don't condone everything that they do. And I actually feel very sad when I see so many dead kids and, kids under 18 dying, and women and everything. But fundamentally, this is warfare, and the warfare is caused by Hamas and by a dangerous Islamic ideology that believes that the Jews shouldn't live.
I'm going to bring in Georgia. Georgia, looking at the people on the streets, I mean, you'll have seen yourself, and no doubt have been thoroughly frustrated by the fact that they say things like, we need to free Gaza. Well, Gaza hasn't had the Israelis in it since, 2005? I mean, is there an ignorance actually attached to the movement?
I think, broadly speaking, most British people, including people who identify as, let's be real, they're not pro-Palestine, they're anti-Israel and anti the Jewish people in 99.9% of circumstances. But I think there are also people who know full well that that's the case, but they want Palestinians to live under an Islamic caliphate, and they want the same for other people in the Middle East, not just Jewish people, Christians too.
Yes.
I think you mentioned the river to the sea slogan. So the original slogan in Arabic was, I think, from the river to the sea, make Palestine Islamic, and they changed it for the English-speaking secular international audience. But that is what it's about. That's why this conflict goes on. It's not about this bit of land or that bit of land. It's about getting rid of a Jewish state in the Middle East.
Do you think actually in this country, Georgia, and I'll throw that question to Eunice as well, that actually we should have prescribed, in the same way we prescribed Hamas as a terrorist organisation, should we prescribe the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, for example, in this country?
I would definitely be open to that. I think it's just a bit different because it's attached to an actual government. But I think there's definitely enough evidence to suggest that should take place. But I do worry about how useful that would actually be, because we've prescribed Hamas and Hezbollah, but we still have people who openly support them, who kind of go about their everyday business. They've not even been arrested. We have former Hamas commanders, for goodness sake, living freely in the UK, living in bloody ex-council houses.
Ex-council housing, I know.
So I think the issue is broader than just categorising something as a terror group. And think about how many people out there would kind of pretend I'm not actually supporting Hamas, and then their actions speak otherwise. I
mean, Eunice, do you think that listening to what George has just said there on the sort of lackadaisical approach of the British state to the threat that is potentially posed, do you think actually, do you look at the actions of this country and think that we're so laid back we might as well be horizontal?
Yes, and I think this is going to be the downfall of the West, political correctness and weak leadership. And the Islamic Republics is a terrorist organization because they support Hamas and Hezbollah, and they're the ones that fund them. So you prescribe Hamas and Hezbollah as a terrorist organization, but you don't do the same thing to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And recently I had a friend of mine, he works for Iran International, Puria Zeraati, which was stabbed outside his house by the Islamic Republic's agents. So they are causing terrorism in this country, and they're stabbing people, and the reason why he was stabbed is because he's extremely critical of the Islamic Republic. And this happens, and he needs to live under police protection because of that incident. So if the Islamic Republic can do this in this country, why are we not being more firm? And it just makes me think that maybe there is something happening behind the scenes, or maybe there's a geopolitical reason, or maybe there is a reason why they want to keep these guys in power. But I always say this to everyone. If Iran opens up, it is a gold mine. it is going to be the biggest economic opportunity in the world. So it is in the interest of the West and in the interest of the international community that the Islamic Republic of Iran goes and Iran is freed. And you will see a radical decrease in terrorism in the region if that happens. And unfortunately, what's happening now is that I think the war in Gaza is just a front. And behind Iran is Russia, and Russia is also connected to China. So, and I think they're all fighting it out in Gaza. And I think this is the battle between East and West.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, the West has made a lot of sins in the past. They invaded countries illegally, they overthrew democratically elected governments. And now they are repaying the sins of the past, you know? And I want the West to win. However, the reason is that the Islamic Republic is being supported by Russia and China, and at this moment in time, the West, because of weak leadership, it doesn't look like they're going to win that war. And it's also because of what they've done. We had a lot of immigrants coming to this country, and now there's a rise of Islamism, and as in my video, there was a rise in pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine. So now they are overtaking us from within, and we are losing that battle.
Well, on that point then, we've got a general election coming up.
Yes.
How do we actually tackle and challenge religious sectarianism? Is there anything any of us can do about it?
Yes, there is. We have to be brave, and we have to speak our minds, and we have to criticize bad ideas. Unfortunately, parties such as the Labour Party, they pander to the Islamic vote. So are other parties. Conservatives and reform have to be the one that come out and speak up. I would ideally like to help in some manner if I could, but what I try to do with my page is to inspire other people to come and speak up, and networks such as GB News and Talk TV or any other news outlets, they need to stop being so politically correct.
Yeah.
And we need to speak up about this. And it actually really worries me when I see people saying Sharia for the UK, or we have people shouting Allahu Akbar in Leeds after they win the councillor. And I'm like, you know, this is crazy for me.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia, given what you've heard there, I know this is something that concerns you too, right? You look at the state of the nation and think, goodness gracious me, what trajectory are we on? But is that what needs to happen? Do we just all need to be that little bit braver, maybe?
We absolutely do. Obviously, some of us have more of a luxury to be braver than others.
Yes.
If you're someone who's stuck in a job that you know if you say something you're going to get fired, and you have a family to look after, I get that. Being a journalist, it's kind of my job to
speak,
to be a bit rude about something. So, I'm in that luxurious position, thankfully, though I have received death threats, as I'm sure all of us have. I think being brave is one thing. Actually changing people's minds, or should we say imprisoning people who are terror threats, is a different thing. And there are some people who they don't want to change their mind. And kind of saying, yay, free speech, is not actually going to change those people. And also, you could say, to an extent, if we keep having high immigration from countries where there is a huge issue with Islamic extremism, with mass immigration, there's no incentive for those people to integrate. And we already have huge issues with integration. So speaking about it is not necessarily going to change the outlook looking forward in 10, 20, 30 years' time.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk, and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.